Mahatma Gandhi flagellated himself with 17 fasts. Once, for 21 days, without any nourishment or medical intervention. Any frail man with an average weight of 50 kgs could end up with a date with death. A fast succeeds not because it bends a government to its will, but because it is the yeast which ferments the rise of a populace. Anna Hazare's fast in Delhi was not meant to bring down a government. Its solitary purpose was to resurrect an India which had become so supine that it slept indolently while the wealth of its nation was being looted by a handful of politicians and their acolytes. Anna is not waiting to see how many hypocritical corrupt ministers come and stand by his side, but Anna wants to see how many Anna Hazares emulated him on the street corners outside their homes. Anna has asked us just one question. Do we fellow Indians have a conscience? John F. Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Friends, we often muse about the abdication by the educated middle classes of our political responsibility for our own destiny. Our generation grew up in an India where a vast gulf separated those who went into professions and those who joined politics. The latter, at the risk of simplifying things, were either at the very top or very bottom. Were either Maharajas or big zamindars with feudal hold on the allegiances of voters in their district, or semi-literate lumpins with little to lose who joined politics as their only means of self-advancement. If you belong to neither category, you studied hard, took your exams, and made a success of your life on merit, and you stayed clear of politics as an activity for those other people, right? But the problem with this approach is that it left out the Indian politics, the very group of people who are the mainstay of politics in other democracies. In most Western democracies, politics is mainly a middle class pursuit, with the educated tax-paying middle classes being the one who bring value and conviction to a country's political system, who set up the political agenda, who form the bulk of voters, activists and candidates for the political office. But in India, our middle class has neither the time for politics, activism, nor the money, or even the votes that count. The money flows at the top, and the votes in our stratified society lie at the bottom. The members of the middle class often look at politics with disdain, abstain from voting, and hardly ever turn out in masses. It's the poor people who spend hours standing in the hot sun casting their ballot, as they rightly believe that their votes make a difference. Whereas in the US, the turnout of the poor black Harlem for most presidential elections, barring Obama's, barely exceeds 20%. Growing up in India, I was used to the double standard most Indians accept. Conduct on the part of our politicians which we would never condone in our neighbors. Traditional middle class morality required arranged marriages, marital fidelity, scrupulous honesty and adherence to law at all times. Whereas our politicians were expected to be different from us and hence exempt from all these norms. And they enjoyed a social counterbalance to lie, cheat, dissemble, commit large-scale duplicity, taxation, adultery, only murder was a little more difficult. So it was with some astonishment when I discovered the opposite double standard in operation in the US. Americans required, rather expected, conduct on the part of their politicians which they would never have demanded of their neighbors. Middle class Americans, for most part of their lives, lived in an environment of pre and extramarital sex, divorce and adultery, whereas they looked at their politicians as models of moral rectitude, with their CVs punctuated with standard, long-lasting, faithful marriages and 2.5 clean-cut children. It basically means they idolized their leaders, and we in India routinely disparage them. The result is 10 out of the last 12 presidential nominees in the US for both the political parties were graduates from either Harvard or Yale, whereas the products of our best educational institutions hardly ever venture into politics, as they consider it beneath themselves to step into the muck and mire of the country's politics. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
But the bigger question, my friends, can this state of affairs continue indefinitely? And it probably will not, as India's economic transformation bring more and more people into the middle class, which will one day reach a point when its numbers will indeed begin to matter in elections. What we just saw happen on the 8th of April, when Anna Hazare leading the anti-corruption revolution, was only a glimpse of what we middle classes are capable of. My message to this young audience, the young middle class audience, is not getting involved into politics is a coup out. Mother India is calling. The nation needs us. Jawaharlal Nehru once said, Gandhi's greatest contribution was not the liberation of India from British, was not the liberation of India from British, but the liberation of Indians from fear. The second had to precede the first. There used to be an era when this country's political leadership was full of people this nation admired, which is history now. The time has come for a complete new breed of young leaders from the middle class, people with good degrees, national vision, international experience, vibrant ideas, and the capacity to articulate them. The time has come for the common man to recreate history. In that eventuality lies our country's salvation. Today, I want to ask you all, do you fellow Indians have a conscience? And if the answer is yes, then stand up and save this nation from the death grip of corruption. Rise and take control of the leadership reins of this nation. This is a wake-up call for India's life. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.